I'll just ask everyone to come and take a seat because we're going to get started. So it's wonderful to have you all here this evening in our space. I'm the Queensland State Leader for Arup, and this is our office, so very proud to have you here this evening. We love our office space. I'll start with some housekeeping. So the fire exits, there's a fire exit just behind the lifts, and there's also a fire exit just behind the stairs. The bathrooms are also just behind the stairs there at the back if you need to use the facilities. And this evening I'll just start with an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the lands with which we are gathered this evening, the Turrbal and the Jagera people, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Acknowledge their deep connection to the land and the continued ongoing connection, and pay my respects to them moving forward. So I'd just like to introduce Paul Violett, who will be running this evening's event, Pecha Kucha. So this will be my first Pecha Kucha event, and so I'm really looking forward to experiencing it. So, Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. It's amazing to be here and having an event again. It's been about a year since we had our last Brisbane open house, nearly to the date, but it's always an exciting opportunity to share ideas about design and work and process, and share stories about architects and designers, and we've got a statistician tonight. So I'm Paul Violett, I'm your host for tonight. I'm one of the organisers of Pecha Kucha. I'm an architect and a design nerd myself, and it's a real pleasure to be here with you all. Collaborating with Brisbane Open House, again, is a real treat. They do such a great job at bringing design to the public. I'm just going to introduce John Elway briefly, who's going to have a few words about their program.
Paul's the design nerd that refreshes the Brisbane Open House website on the day that you get tickets, and he just keeps going and going and going and gets them all, aren't you? Yeah? Own up. Okay. Thank you for all coming tonight. On behalf of the Brisbane Open House team, it's a event we all love kind of putting together each year. Most of us are all volunteers. My name's John Elway. I'm on the board. And a big group of volunteers is people that host buildings on the weekend. So I'd really like to thank them if some of you are here as well. Thank you to Paul for putting on tonight. It's a lot of work kind of curating speakers and getting all their kind of things together and their slides, so it should be a really good night. But the big one I'd like to thank is Arup for offering up their space tonight for us all. These guys are opening up on the weekend as well for tours. And they're hosting tonight and putting on drinks, but also they're sponsors of Brisbane Open House. And we always really like to get sponsors. So if anyone, it's really hard to get money these days. Like, you know, the government and everyone doesn't want to hand out money. So if anyone really wants to get involved with Brisbane Open House, it's a great thing to be part of, and to keep it going, we need help. So please come and have a chat. But I'll pass it back to Paul to get going.
Thank you so much. And from me too, a big thank you also to Arup. This amazing space is just, privileged to be here. It's harder and harder to get venues to host these kind of things, and so, great to be here. And so, Pecha Kucha, it's started by two architects, Astrid Klein and Mark Dythan, back in 2003 in Tokyo. They wanted to have creatives share their work, but they realised that creatives have a tendency to talk too much. So they condensed the format, shortened it down to be 20 slides at 20 seconds each, and they called it Pecha Kucha, which in Japanese is the sound of chit-chat. So it's a global community of designers and creatives. It's held in over 1,200 cities around the world. And recently we've seen a whole lot of events of cities collaborating online as well. So it's a great reminder that we're part of this global institution of events, and that if you're ever travelling, there's a global website that you can go to pop into an event in that city, if it just so happens to be on at the time. Anyway, we've been going for quite a few years now. This is our 68th event. We typically have at least one a year, sometimes 3, 4 if we're feeling generous, but it depends on how things go. But yeah, really excited for the speakers that we have on tonight. We've got 6 creatives for you, some architects, some makers. We've got a statistician. Very excited to get into it. First up, we have Jared and Julia from Arup. Jared is a senior landscape architect who has supported the delivery of national and international projects built and proposed, spanning a range of landscape typologies and scales. Julia is a structural engineer in the Queensland buildings team, working on projects scaling from local transport canopies to international stadia. She is passionate about making the world of engineering accessible and engaging for all. Julia and Jared will explore how Arup's values shape the design of the new Brisbane workplace, showcasing how culture, purpose and innovation converge to craft a place with enduring meaning. The title of their talk is Designing with Intention, where value takes shape. Please welcome Julia and Jared.
What do you get when you commit to creating a physical space that manifests your values?
You get our new workplace. Welcome to Arup Brisbane. I'm Jared.
And I'm Julia.
And we are excited to take you on a journey through our office, showing how every aspect has been shaped by Arup values. We wanted to create a space that has a positive impact on both the environment and the people who occupy it, and we think we have succeeded. But we invite you all to be the judges. We would like to acknowledge and thank our many collaborators, including Hassel, Buildcorp, Blacklash, 5 Mile Radius, and many others. What do you get when you choose to centre design around respect for country and place and what has come before? How can you ensure that everyday users of a space understand this history and context?
Respect begins with listening. That's why we engage with Blacklash, a First Nations design consultancy, to ensure we pay respect to the place on which our office is found. Embedding stories from creek to sky, flora and movement, these design impacts, whether they be subtle or overt, all act as living reminders for everyone who comes to the workspace of the country on which we work. What do you get when you acknowledge that we all have a role to play as custodians for future generations?
This project targeted the Living Building Challenge, one of the toughest benchmarks in sustainable design. We vetted over 600 materials and tracked the embodied carbon of every component that came into the space. The introduction of over 90 different salvage materials and waste stream monitoring during construction ensured the build was net waste positive, and the work doesn't stop there. Ongoing material tracking continues to educate industry and engage everyone who uses the space daily. What do you get when you engage experts who are innovators and leaders in their field? What can you achieve if you dare to challenge the status quo?
Knowing that sustainable design was at the heart of this office, we engaged with 5 Mile Radius, a local company trailblazing in their industry. They helped us to fit out our office with salvage material and also design for disassembly at end of life, ultimately meaning that we can close the loop on waste. With over 90 salvage materials used and 70% locally sourced, I think we can safely say that their vision has allowed us to see a future for materials that would otherwise just go to landfill. What do you get when you acknowledge the strength that lies in diversity? What does a workplace look like that allows everybody to bring their best selves to work?
Our office offers a variety of spaces to the people who use them. From collaborative meeting rooms to quiet cubbies, and from lounges to focused workstations, cafe booths to greenhouse-inspired breakouts. Arupians can move freely to find the space that suits their needs, task or mood. Multi-program spaces provide amenity for a variety of users, including infant change tables, foot baths, meditation mats, and reclining seats for the ever-important siesta. What do you get when you choose to push the boundaries and dare to search for novel solutions?
Our cross-laminated timber hero staircase is at the centre of our office, so just bear with me being a structural engineering nerd for the moment. This staircase had its form found from an internal design competition and is able to meet both the access constraints of the existing building whilst also creating a striking ziggurat to feet, something we can normally only achieve using concrete. Using hidden steel beams and over 2,000 screws, it's able to hang from the floor above, giving us future flexibility and allowing us to make use of the space underneath. And if you're looking at these images wondering where those beams are, then I guess that means we've done our job correctly. What do you get when you choose to design for people, not just their productivity? Can a workplace make you feel better, not just work better?
We turned to the WELL building standard and are on target to achieve a platinum rating. 1,900 plants, that's more than 4 plants per person, shape and frame views across the floor plate. Generous natural lighting from panoramic windows illuminate neighbourhoods. Workspaces have been situated to support key views to geographic landmarks of the region, including Mengersen, Mount Gulpen, Mount Cootha, the Glasshouse Mountains, and of course, the Brisbane River. These design approaches were driven by the concept of both direct and indirect connection to nature. What do you get when you use your office to empower the community around you and blend purpose with place?
Our community doesn't end at the office walls, and we can care about the people living in our environment as well as the built environment. So, meet the Wise Cafe. They partner with Multicultural Australia to support both refugees and migrants to gain economic independence through business partnerships. We're also really excited to host public events like this in our forum space and welcome in the broader community. What do you get when you place total design at the heart of everything you do? What does it look like when you see the collaboration and enthusiasm of your employees as key hallmarks in your success?
At Arup, we know that our strength lies with our members, an understanding that design can never happen in a silo. The office seeks to break down these barriers. An open forum and floor plate promotes spontaneous collaboration, and a neighbourhood seating model breaks down rigid team boundaries. And with design aspects borrowed from the Melbourne and Sydney offices, this office is an example of how we work as one Arup. In conclusion, what do you get when you create a space to have enduring meaning?
You get a workplace shaped by care. Care for people, care for place, and care for the future. True to our founding values, every design decision aims to be useful, humane, and genuinely excellent. Our Brisbane office doesn't just house our work, it is our work. It shows everything that makes Arup, Arup. This office is total design in action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I turned you off. But...
No, that's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like it's just scratches the surface of the space, and lucky that it's open on Saturday as well, so people can come and kick more of the skirting boards and get a bit more into things. Next up, we have Damian Thompson, director at LatStudios. Damian found life's purpose stacking his dragster into the bottom of a concrete drainage culvert. He'll be discussing this uninvited experience along with a few other pivotal moments that have helped shape his creative process. The title of his talk is The Multiplicity of Effort. Please welcome Damian.
Thanks, Paul. Arup are in good hands, clearly. That was impressive. Bloody hell. Did anyone notice that Paul's slides, he had the clicker? No 20 seconds for you. Just pointing that out. I come from a large family, so this is equally terrifying and really familiar to me, all of you here. That's some of them up there. Try and pick me. youngest, 6 sisters, older than me, 3 daughters, and, let's just get the matriarchy going right now. Get out of the fucking way. Let that happen. I grew up in Quadamika country. I'm very happy that I did. I didn't know it at the time, but that managed landscape was core to kind of me finding landscape architecture and stacking my dragster. When we moved the family to Coorparoo, it's Hanlon Park, Stones Corner, died in a ditch literally there, and got me wondering what the hell is going on with this place. Perfect childhood on the bay. Then that happened. So I'm also a child of the 80s. Bad hair. Could have been me, not sure. Could have probably one of my sisters. That film came out in 84 when we were reeking of dystopian futures. Fuck the future, it's going to be shit, we're going to burn everything, it's going to explode all over the place. So what do? Choose your enemy, choose your hero. I chose Arnie, didn't realise he was coming for me, the big fucker. In the form of landscape architecture, in 91, Terminator 2, flipped the switch. Old mate went back, actually from the future, sent Arnie back to save him. He didn't know it at the time. For me, that's the kind of analogy of running for your life in the culverts of hell in Coorparoo and trying to work out how to create some sort of intergenerational legacy with your life. What's your purpose? Fast forward, followed a girl to Sydney. One day I looked up from the site sheds. Anyone from Cox here? I got locked in a site shed with Ramin Sharomi for 3 days, whilst figs from Queensland were sailed up Homebush Bay to be planted in the Sydney Olympic forecourt, and I think it's time we should get those things back. We need them up here now for 2032. Got locked in an abattoir with this guy, Richard Goodwin, who's an artist. Work with artists if you can. It's an amazing way to kind of expand your thinking. That's his happy face, Richard. These 3 stone blocks down here, cocked it already. There's a seam of sandstone the convicts dug in Pyrmont called, it's like the Platonian triad, truth, beauty and goodness. It was heaven, hell and purgatory. We snuck some names on the side of there. That was a little subversive act. Repaved paradise. A lot of our work at LAT is about actually flipping the challenge of big pieces of public realm. This was a car park where great drug deals were held, I'm told. And we made a great park and event space out of it. This bunch of idiots saw the GFC coming in, what year are we, 2011, and thought, let's start a really top-heavy design studio. What could go wrong? This is Monday morning. This is Tuesday morning. Could be any morning. We're just happy to be alive. Toast to GFC. Who cares? Get out of the way. We're going to make things happen. And luckily for now, we've got a great practice in Brisbane. This is a couple of years ago over on Mengersen, beautiful place close to our hearts. Spot the Arup employee. Where is he? I haven't seen him yet, but one of these people actually now works at Arup, so we're very happy about that. We love to play. The multiplicity of efforts is about understanding that shit happens with a whole lot of us working in the background, in the front ground, sometimes with the mic, sometimes not. Come in on Saturday at 3 o'clock and walk down the RNA, and they've got a great project, Lend Lease, that we've been working on for 10 odd years. Some amazing things. We moved buildings, we moved earth, we found some things, we won some hearts. And now we're going to think about, well, what does that mean for 2032 in the big dance? The other part of creative practice that I would espouse the virtues of is actually doing some R&D and just kind of sticking your neck out and having a crack at something. This is the Green Group we did with the government architect. A little piece of that study. A non-dystopian future. Maybe a future that actually is pretty cool. We might, dystopian future films are just a failure of imagination, a lot of people think, and tend to agree with them. And then don't mess with science. The science is in. Our cities are getting hot. Look at Europe at the moment. Large trees, through our research and others, stand on the shoulders of giants in terms of science. Big trees in cities really help us get as many of those big things in. So the idea of Fig City is something that LAT's been pushing wherever we can in an urban context. And you can get things done in a short period of time. For all the people like myself freaking out about what's happening, tenders aren't let yet. They haven't got a brief yet for anything to do with, there's a couple have come out for the Olympics, but this is the Commonwealth Games, Athletes Village on the Gold Coast. In 2 years, let's not have the project managers having to wear cameras so that they weren't assaulted on site. Discuss with me later. Invest in other people. So the multiplicity of effort. This was a conference that we helped support with Blacklash, the crew that's been mentioned and will be mentioned a few times tonight. 40-odd Indigenous speakers from around the country in New Zealand, First Nations conversations, not anyone else speaking, and in the round, and everyone had to listen, no phones, no pens, just full focus. That for me was a massive turning point in terms of how we can actually positively reflect and listen. There's not enough spaces like this in the city. We're working for Dexus Waterfront Brisbane at the moment. Again, with Blacklash in terms of the kind of thinking, pull back everything and get a major public space. The city will finally get a big lawn on the river facing east to get sunset on. And this is back to where I stacked my bike. So the guys at Tract, Paul Morris and the guys at Blytana did an amazing job with Hanlon Creek at Stones Corner. It's a really good example of legacy thinking, what you can do when you put all your energy behind something that we started 10 years ago, and AECOM were there before us, and the kids just absolutely love it. And there's not, well, as far as I can tell, AI is pretty good now. There could be a Terminator or 3 in there, I don't know. The Dutch Reach, a friend of mine, Seb in Melbourne, got smacked by a car door the other day, and I thought I'd just put a public service announcement in his surprise. I'll go over here for this one. Just watch where you go when you open the bloody door in your car. The Dutch Reach is open the door with the opposite hand. This is in Europe, so that don't get messed by the diagram, it's the other way around. How do you get some sort of internal peace when you're really maddened about life? Travel with your family. Out of range just there. That's part of my family. This is in the Louvre. I do like to draw a lot in terms of personal process and creativity. The blue pen was a mistake. That's the only pen I bought, but it ended up being magic because you can rub it out if you want to, and that's a good thing as a designer. And if you be careful what you ask for. So I ended up being asked to be on the City of Brisbane Legacy Committee, which is over to you guys. Come and see me. What ideas have you got? I've had a few cracks at this in different forums, but the open invitation for the city, it is a very generous and proper one. How can we all band together, the multiplicity of effort, to make some really cool shit happen, not in the future? So, time to get cracking. So that's you. Scared? You should be. That could be 32 or bus, could be climate change, could be a bad haircut from the 80s, whatever it is, get cracking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Damian. I think that perfectly encapsulated the point of Pecha Kucha, is condense all of this content in a little digestible thing.
So much more.
I know. And that's the point. Thank you very much. It's a great introduction. So thank you. I'm sure you'll stick around and people can ask you questions about those. I have some. Next up, we have Jessica Lee. Jessica is a principal at FK and a leading voice in the future of design in Australia. As a studio leader of FK's Brisbane practice, Jess drives innovation in the seniors living sector, advocating for architecture that fosters connection, resilience, and quality of life. With 2 decades of experience, she takes a deeply human-centric approach to architecture, focusing on people, their stories, and their evolving needs. Committed to making good design accessible to all, Jess continues to champion innovative models of living that responds to Australia's ageing population and changing expectations around care. Her recent postgraduate studies in health and well-being further cement her position at the intersection of architecture, care, and social purpose. Please welcome Jessica.
Thank you. So you're going to start the timer now? After that brilliant introduction, I actually don't need to do my own introduction, so I feel I've got 20 seconds to tell a joke. What a great show to follow. Thank you, Damian. Now I've got to tone down everybody after that 20 slides from Damian there. I'm incredibly excited to be here tonight. My topic is about sharing with you turning points in architecture. I'll kick off with a quote from Carl Elefante by saying that the greenest building is one that is already built. I say that although new developments today offer greater accessibility, livability, and energy efficiency, the retrofitting existing buildings is really a highly effective way of reducing waste and carbon emissions in the construction industry. Just to backtrack, adaptive reuse has been a methodology that FK, as a practice, has been working over 3 decades. And as structures come to the end of their life, it's underutilized. This approach of obsolete assets is a great way to sort of create an opportunity for renewal, sometimes known as relifing a building. Some of our earliest examples here is an existing wheat silo that was repurposed into a 7-story apartment conversion. You can see there the circular plans on the left-hand side, the plans have been repurposed into bedrooms, bathrooms, a stair, and an extension to the front that looks like an iron or a hull shape that gives you a dual aspect living area. In 1999 there, we repurposed an office tower into an apartment building in the Melbourne CBD on Spring Street, adding about 6 stories on top, What was a pretty dull and repetitive edifice was turned into a modern piece of architecture with 2 apartments per floor plate facing a park and a city view. Moving down into 2001, the existing old post office in the Melbourne CBD there on Russell Street was repurposed to an apartment building known today as Hero Apartments. This building, as you can see in the old photo there, was built in 1948. Also had another 6 stories added on top, seems to be the magical number. And coming to Mona, just to take you down to Tasmania, this building here was the catalyst of two houses built by Sir Roy Grounds to the architects in the room. An entire museum was carved into the side of a cliff just to make sure that the prominence of the existing heritage building was left on top of the cliff and became a key entry point into the wonderful world of Mona below. 2011, a fire occurred that brought down a previously 1920s heritage timber building. The building was burned and the existing walls and columns were actually retained as part of the reconstruction, where we repurposed a 4-story building into the shell of the existing heritage form. 2016, Jark's Apartments here was formerly a factory with a 10-meter high brick perimeter wall that used to produce rock crushing equipment. And it was repurposed into 2-story townhouses on the ground and apartments on the top. Most of the original bricks there was retained and carved out to be part of like the building frontage. More bricks. This is the Buxton Contemporary Art Gallery. It was completed in 2018. Part of University of Melbourne South Bank campus. Most of the existing building, you can see that the facade was retained. It was largely intact. A couple of ESD updates. Just goes to show that bricks are big for life. Coming closer to home, here we have Midtown Centre, just across the street. This building set a new benchmark in 2021 by repurposing 2 aging towers from the 70s by merging them into one contiguous commercial plate. Not to mention the heritage facade here that interfaces with the floor. This series of diagrams here, 3D, shows the building process of the retention of the existing structure, the retained structure, the facade was pulled out, we added another 6 stories on top, and the facade was reskinned in a curtain wall system. Just goes, there was about 11,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions that was avoided just by retaining the structure that's there today. So if anybody walks by, they'll be hard-pressed to remember what the old forestry and house building looks like. The layers of history has been retained on the inside, but the outside's been enhanced to meet today's standards in accessibility and best practices in ESD. So, moving back to Melbourne, nearly there. 2023, the Alba was Australian Unity's headquarters, built from the 70s that was repurposed from an office building to residential aged care. I would say the first of its kind in Australia. So this building was built to accommodate 155 residential aged care suites. And in case anyone in this room is considering retrofitting, here's a couple of things you need to think about. Existing building floor-to-floor heights, fire protection for new structural steel, facade remediation, dual certification processes with your structural engineers and your service engineers, and you got to think about the whole, flush floor plate transitions. I hope you know a friendly architect or engineer, otherwise talk to me after this. Since its opening, despite COVID challenges, back in June 2023, our clients shared that the precinct contributed about 66.5 million worth of community and social value, and this is through job creation, purpose-built accommodation for the elderly. And of course, by retaining the structure, we saved about 3,300 tons of carbon dioxide, emissions. Moving back to, we're still in Melbourne, in 2024. This is 500 Burke Street, which was an office tower in the city that was refurbished to be revitalized, retrofit, focusing on sustainability, flexibility, and on enhancing tenant engagement. Drawing inspiration from Australian landscape, the design incorporates natural materials such as timber, travertine, even some leather to make it a warm and welcoming environment for a corporate office entry. The old lobby that you can see there on the left used to be the old National Australian Bank HQ until the building was acquired by ISPT in 1998. Circling back to Brisbane today, 450 Queen Street, we seek to relive this building from a 1970s office to a contemporary workplace today. So it used to be occupied by the old Public Trustee of Queensland, if anyone's familiar with that, for almost 50 years. So it's going to be topped with 2 additional stories of mass timber and construction, not just to keep it light, but sustainable. That's what it's going to look like in the future. And this old dame is keeping her old bones, but she's getting a new look, as you can see. So, well, 450 Queen Street claimed the title of Australia's next greenest building, according to Carl, who started that quote. I should think so. And that concludes Pecha Kucha for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess. I love this idea about all these old buildings getting these fancy new hairdos over the course of the city over the next decade or so. Thank you very much. Yeah, old bones. Next up, we have distinguished Professor Kerrie Mengersen, a statistician from QUT. Her bio reads, I do stats. I develop methods to unlock the stories that data want to tell us, and then apply these methods to discover new insights into real-world challenges related to our health, our environment, and our society. There's no doubt that one of the biggest turning points this millennium is the explosion of data. Come for a turn around Brisbane with me while I point to some of the ways in which we're using data to address a range of challenges facing the fabric and the people of our city. Tonight, her talk is titled Recounting Brisbane with Data. Please welcome Kerrie.
Thank you. Well, there is no doubt that one of the biggest turning points in the 21st century has been the explosion of data. And I'm a statistician, and I take data and I break it open to tell stories about our world and our people. So come for a walk with me around the Brisbane River while I tell some of these stories. And I'm going to start by turning and pointing to the past. When South Bank was first built in 40 years ago, when it was developed for the World Expo, there was no real monitoring of the big impact that would have on our city. Fast forward to today, and we see major infrastructure like Queen's Wharf Brisbane, Cross River Rail. What impact will that have on our city in the future? Well, we've created, about 5 years ago, a long-term study of monitoring the benefits and the impacts of these kinds of major infrastructure. And this will create a data digital signature into the future for our city. This is a future story, so you'll have to invite me back next time to tell you more about this one. But I want to take the data spotlight now and turn and point it to an issue that's facing all of us today, and that is our changing climate. There's no doubt that a changing climate affects how we build our houses and how we live in our cities, but it also affects our health. But how? And what does it mean for me? So we've created a digital platform again that brings together a whole bunch of different data about the environment and health. And we've created indices of vulnerability to high temperature and poor air quality so that we can then map those indices across the country and understand then how we might project or predict future vulnerability in different areas, how we might compare different areas, and how we might plan mitigation strategies like more green spaces, big trees, or bringing other aspects like whatever. So one of the other spotlights I'd like to shine on health is on cancer. So cancer affects all of us in Queensland and in Brisbane. There's hardly anybody in this room, I'm sure, that would not be affected in some way by cancer. But where is that cancer and how does it affect where we live? So we've created the Australian Cancer Atlas that brings together about the incidence and the survival for about 30 different cancers at a small area level. And this allows us then to be able to zoom in to any area and understand what the cancer profile is like for those areas. So we can, for example, zoom into Brisbane and see what Brisbane is like with respect to the most important cancers, for example, melanoma. But we can also zoom out and we can see that there are different survival rates for people who live in the city and people who live in the bush. And this means then that when we look at that disparity, which should not really exist for a country like Australia. So when we look at these disparities for survival between the cities and the country areas, we see a big difference. And if we just look at one cancer, for example, we could save, if we didn't have that disparity, about 100 deaths. But over all the cancers in Australia, we could save over 1,000 deaths a year if we removed this disparity between people who live in the city and people who live in the bush. Now, this is a hopeful story because it provides governments and agencies with the information they need to target screening practices and access to treatment for the most vulnerable people who need it most. I'd like to take my data spotlight now, my data stories, to another turn of the river and look up at our exotic and beautiful wildlife. And there's so many factors that are complexly related in protecting these kinds of animals like koalas. How do governments and councils and conservation agencies and landholders understand the complexity of these factors and what they might do in terms of management strategies? Well, we can take data from literature, from surveys, from citizen studies, from experts, and we can create complex systems models that will allow us then to be able to predict for any area the potential number of koalas that could live in that area. And that enables us then to really identify the major factors that are affecting koalas in that area. For example, their ecology, vegetation cover, vehicle strikes, and also the areas that are most in need of protection for our beautiful species. Take another turn around the river now and shine the spotlight not up, but down. And we see another iconic species that's at our doorstep, coral. We have some of the most beautiful coral reefs here next to us and across the Great Barrier Reef. We have great monitoring at some sites, but lots of spaces in between with no information. Enter new forms of data in the form of underwater photos. Many divers taking photos. We've built a digital reef that enables those photos to be geotagged, and anyone around the world can access those photos and identify coral in those photos. We extract that information as new data, we combine it with the monitoring data, and we come up with better estimates of the health of the reef. And you can see here how much difference this makes. When we just use the monitoring data, we don't get a very good relationship between what we observe and what we predict. But if we use the citizen science data, we do much better. So become citizen scientists. I'd like to take our spotlight now and shine it at the underbelly of Brisbane, at an issue of modern slavery. Now, this is not a somewhere else problem. It's a problem that exists here in Brisbane and in our business supply chains. And our businesses are trying to do something about this. Every year they submit a report in compliance with the Modern Slavery Act. But there's tens of thousands of these statements and only a handful of people to assess them. So we've extracted information from these statements as data and created AI tools that can assist those assessors to get rid of this scourge in our city. I come to the final turning point and shine the light to the future, 2032. And this will be an Olympics, a data Olympics. We'll have data to design stadiums, to improve sports performance, and to also improve participation in sport, so we can all benefit from this. And finally, as we come to the turn where we can look back across all of these data stories, we see that it's not just about these stories, but also how data relates to the Open House 2025. Architects and artists also tell stories with data. They use data as a pigment, and they use data to allow buildings to dream in digital memory. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kerrie. That's fantastic. Thank you. Next up, we have Marcus Bree. He's a designer maker who works making stuff at different scales. He has a passion for materials and a strong interest in methods of fabrication and construction. He works with architects, engineers, landscape architects, graphic designers, and clients on projects of varying sizes. The exchange of ideas in these collaborative projects has created exceptionally cohesive and holistic design solutions. This love of making things has evolved into Little Building Co., a successful brand of highly detailed architectural model kits that operates in parallel with Bree Industries design services. The design process is often made out to be a complicated one, but he says it's a really simple process of asking the right questions, listening, and delivering an appropriate solution. He says, I've found that through an open and collaborative approach with all involved, the best result is a solution that all parties have ownership of. Please welcome Marcus for his talk tonight, Scale.
Thank you, Paul. Oh, jeez. I'm going to use this little crib sheet. It's unusual to see so many people. Like I normally work on my own, so this is a bit of a big thing. You can click right to the end if you like. Hi, my name is Marcus Bree. I'm a designer and maker of stuff. I trained as an engineer and three-dimensional designer. My company, Bree Industries, developed and manufactures the Little Building Co. range of architectural model kits. I also work at a large scale on placemaking and interpretive projects. I'm interested in architecture, materials, structures, developing concepts, storytelling and problem solving. I work out of a well-equipped workshop in Bulimba where I research, design, develop, manufacture all of our kits in-house. I also play and experiment a lot. I previously worked designing large-scale exhibition stands for pharmaceutical companies. These were often logistically complex, rapidly constructed, while being designed to be used in a number of times and on various sites and various locations. The budget for that was $250,000 for that particular stand, and it went to three different venues. I came to Australia as an exhibition designer to work on the National Museum of Australia in Canberra, which is Ashton Raggett McDougall building. And if any of you are unfamiliar with that, you might want to check it out. Initially working on designing the Gallery of First Australians, I then moved on to project-wide management, installing over 3,000 graphic panels and literally thousands of museum objects that all needed a home. The following three slides illustrate the three initial slivers at Reconciliation Place in Canberra. This was a landmark project at the time. My small team developed interpretive content, engaged artists, resolved fabrication issues, sourced fabricators, prototyped and delivered the finished three slivers. The structures focus on issues of separation, strength, service and sacrifice, and the Ngunnawal people, who were the native people of Canberra. We got to quarry stone. We had a geologist come to pick the particular piece of stone and had a stonemason say, well, I can just split this in half, drilling a few holes and knocking in some wedges, which is quite a scary thing to watch. But they actually know what they're doing. There was glass, steel, all kinds of things. After moving to Brisbane, I began developing the Little Building Co. range of architectural models. The Australian series was the proof of concept for an idea I'd been formulating in my mind for a while. Inspired by the buildings around me and a laser engraved carve that I acquired in Canberra, which is at the top left there, that says Spectrum on it. I'd visited lots of great buildings in my time, and then never been anything really that appealed to me in the gift shops. I'm not really interested in headscarves or anything like that. The development of my kits is kind of funded by my design work, and the following three slides, or that one as well, illustrates placemaking projects for the Department of Queensland Parks and Wildlife, an entry statement for Noosa, Broken River at Youngler, where you can go and see platypuses, and also Stockyard Point. I take inspiration from the location and subject matter, and with the intention of developing sympathetic, interpretive installations. Oh, I might need that one. That's okay. Back. Oh no, we're still there. That's good. I've got some time up my sleeve. It's placemaking, and placemaking that sits the situation that it actually kind of sits in, I guess, which is kind of common sense. Back to models again. In 2009, I was approached by Karen Meyerhoff, the marketing manager for the Guggenheim in New York, to develop a model for their museum, a Frank Lloyd Wright building. Their initial order was for over 3,000 units, which were all designed and manufactured in my home studio. And you can see them there in the box at the bottom. I've since designed and manufactured over 20,000 Guggenheim kits shipped to the New York store. The slides illustrate the numerous prototypes made in the development of various building components. The next slide will show you a third generation model made from American cherry, aspen, acrylic and MDF. And I like my models to have a truth to the materials they're made from, so they're not kind of sprayed or finished or anything like that. All my models come with comprehensive instructions which illustrate the assembly of the model piece by piece, and also some information about the history of the building and its interesting facts. It's a huge undertaking getting a product into a shop, and I've got utmost respect for anyone that can actually get anything out there and sell it, because it's a massive process that you don't realise until you embark on it, how many hoops you have to jump through. I try to develop an understanding of materials with every project as a way of growing and developing. For the Muddaborough Interpretive Centre, which tells the story of the discovery of the Muttaburrasaurus, I designed and constructed a steel globe, concrete cabinets, furniture, a 3 metre by 4 metre LED illuminated display. Anyway, that was in the Brian Hooper building. You've clicked that too quickly. That was in a Brian Hooper building, by the way, which you're probably familiar, which actually won an architectural prize. Some projects take time to come to fruition. You just have to wait for the appropriate solution to come along. It took a number of years to develop and track down suitable materials to clad the Opera House shells, and this video illustrates the number of iterations I worked through to get to a final solution. I'm often told it's all done on the laser. If only it was that straightforward and true. It isn't. Which brings us to today. 6 minutes goes really quickly, doesn't it? Which brings us to today. I'm currently working on Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, which is a project that everyone said, you should do, and you kind of go, well, you kind of know you can do it, so kind of why bother? Starting with the original survey drawings supplied by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1938, reference books, Wright's original drawings, and more recently built survey drawings. This is currently what's on my desk today. Thank you all for coming along to listening, and thank you, John Elway, too, for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marcus. I can't believe that you had an order of 3,000 of those Guggenheims to do. I can't imagine that week would have just elation and then horror. It was wild. Thank you very much for sharing. That's fantastic. And I do have to say, it's all automated. I'm just here as a backup. I'm not controlling it. Next up, we have our final speaker tonight, Clare Kennedy, Director of 5 Mile Radius. She's done this before. She's old hat. Love hearing her speak. And tonight she is going to share a little bit about the work that she did here with Arup. Tonight her bio for the talk, she was saying, working under lead designer Hassel, 5 Mile Radius joined Arup's Brisbane fit out as material consultants and makers, sourcing salvaged materials, detailing for disassembly and fabricating key furniture pieces. Our role, to thread circularity and local supplied stories into a fast-paced commercial project. Tonight, her talk is titled 5 Mile Radius, Fixes, fabricators and the circular supply chain. Please welcome Clare.
Thank you, Paul. Hi everyone, I'm Clare. Yes, I'm the director of 5 Mile Radius. I'm joined by some of my team who are sitting up the back there tonight, and I'm an architect by background. Our practice is half architects and half carpenters and makers and fabricators, and I guess what we do is we try as much as possible to bring either bio-based materials or recycled materials to projects, and we try to bring them from as close as possible, and that's why our practice is named as it is. So for this project for Arup, we sat under Hassel, who were the lead architects and interior designers, and really we were fixers, and I mean that we found materials for the project that would help fulfill Arup's sort of very bold ambition of using a lot of recycled materials. And these are some of the principles we had for the project. So to sort of talk about the process, really we did a range of things, and that's to test ways of working. The first was to sort of assess the existing shell. That's what this floor looked like when we moved in. And simple things like, rather than putting in new ceilings, you'll see if you walk into some of these other spaces, we proposed ways that maybe you just work with existing ceiling tiles, and I'll show you how that looks in a minute. And other ways of working, Hassel had a great vision for transparency in some of the spaces. We found things like decommissioned pallets and use those for some of the framing. That's the walls here. And then you can also see we worked a lot with a material supplier, Ampolite. They make polycarbonate walls, and all of the walls you can see are made from the offcuts from their factory. So that's sort of that coming together. And so what you can see there is a fully disassemblable stud wall that's behind me with offcuts of polycarbonate stuck to it, and the same roof tiles that were already here made to look beautiful by Hassel. So that's sort of just working, I guess, really simply without needing to really add a lot of material. Metals in at the moment, I think, particularly in interiors, and I think that's great, but there's very high embodied energy in metals. If you look at that wall there and also the bar, what that is dead stock from a factory closure in Maruka. A lot of it we found rusty, sitting in a shed in Rocklea. That was blasted and then resupplied to the project with a clear coat. And then all the planters that you can see, that is just it's recycled and defected roof sheeting and wall cladding, which we then just rolled and welded. And that's the idea of a wabi-sabi principle. These things look kind of rough, but that was something that Arup embraced, I suppose. So many things. If you go into that greenhouse over there, the floor is entirely made out of stone sample tiles from Stone and Tile Solutions in Zilmia. Hassel did this layout, which is amazing, and that was to fulfill a brief for finding a hard flooring which was local. And the other greenhouse is using Brisbane tuff, which is a stone that our city's famous for. It's no longer really in supply, except a lot of it was excavated for Cross River Rail. And so we found Bellagio stone in Gatton who were happy to cut it up and then supply a Brisbane tuff floor for the greenhouses. That's a local story which we're really proud of. And then just to talk more broadly, the forum behind you, the Great Stair, we did a process with the architects and with Arup of selecting CLT as the primary material because we really think we need to support the pine industry and good pine forestry if we need to reduce the embodied carbon of building materials. So the reason pine was chosen over, say, recycled hardwood was about a forward-thinking approach. And then really it was over the team at Arup to these are some other principles we talked about, to try and design that stair so it was disassemblable, so that we had other ways to connect what is an American timber to country through some of the designs of this space. And then little things that Arup really backed, which are kind of amazing, is this is the signage package by Studio Ongarato, which we're now manufacturing. It uses all the offcuts from that stair, and that is how all of the signage, and there's about 20 different kinds for this building, are all printed directly onto those offcuts. And then I guess the last thing that I'm going to touch on is the connection to country, which for us I think was the most kind of exciting part of the project. Quite often we find that it's difficult to kind of embody a story of country, in this case responding to a narrative about an existing creek on the site and also the eucalypt forest that surrounded the site, to try and find a way to embody those stories within the built environment. We worked very closely with Blacklash and Hassel to interpret some of those narratives through timber detailing and texturing. And so all of the furniture, or a lot of the furniture that we made, had a range of different timber techniques applied to try and embody this sort of narrative. So the tables, which have been packed up, but they're here somewhere, they're normally here. And this all recycled stud, so just normal stud that we ripped out of a wall, thickness, dressed, laminated. The idea is that routering technique, which is on the underside of the table, it represents the aquifer that ran through the site below the ground, and you could feel that, but you can't necessarily see it. The chairs that are in the social hub, they all are old bits of plywood, again from Maruka, and then we hand-turned dials from recycled hardwood. That was something we developed for Blacklash for their office. The steel frames are also recycled, 100% recycled material. Again, more recycled material. The reception desk there, we made out of that basically just solid recycled hardwood from local Queenslanders, and then to achieve the organic form, we laminated it, and so it's made in a very traditional way rather than something now which would sort of be made more out of MDF and then shaped, so you can disassemble it, and it is still a hardwood. And then I guess there's other tables just on the wings there. These are camphor laurel and invasive weed species, so trying to, as much as possible, improve the ecology of an environment through your timber selection if possible. And you can see those tables there, and then there's a charred version in some of the other offices. So, I mean, that was incredibly fast. I'm actually frustrated because I've got so much more to say. And not enough jokes, but which is my usual style. But as you can see, this thing is incredibly layered. Like, a lot of thought went into it. Hats off to Hassel because the whole thing feels really cohesive. There's many points, I guess, in this journey where we all sort of went like, oh God, how are we going to chuck all this trash together and pull the thing off? But I think it's something to do with the lighting, but it has all come together in a pretty meaningful way. And so, yeah, I'd really like to thank Arup, I think, because they took a lot of risks. We're sort of an unusual consultant to engage, but I think, it was a very fruitful process, and yeah, we hope to do more of that kind of work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. I'm just stunned at how you managed to turn all of these piles into these beautiful solutions that are so considered on the commercial time frame as well. So, yeah, really looking forward to hearing more about that in future too. So, thank you for sharing. And that concludes our evening for tonight. We originally asked speakers to reflect on a theme of turning points and share stories about their practice or lives or about the city. And I thought it was some really interesting junctions about past and future, and really happy to see a range of scales, time, digital and physical things. So please thank all of our speakers for giving up their time, putting these presentations together and sharing. It's really appreciated. Amazing. Thank you all for coming as well. A big thank you to Brisbane Open House for all their support. It's such a treat to collaborate again and reach a much broader audience than we would otherwise. We have a tendency of just talking to architects, so it's great to reach a more diverse audience. We're always keen to hear from more speakers or suggestions from people, so please send us an email or come and say hello. And please check out that program. It's an amazing lineup of events that they have on. And finally, a big thank you to Arup for hosting us. It's such an incredible space to be in. It's worked out so lovely, so generous as well, putting on drinks and snacks, and yeah, lovely to be here. So thank you to the Arup team. And that's it for me. Please enjoy your evening. If I can have all the speakers, Arup and Brisbane Open House, to come up, we might take a photo over by the plant wall over there. And thanks very much. Cheers.